I've observed coaches who only are giving that negative criticism. I think it would go a long way for the student athletes to hear positive accolades in addition to just what they could improve. Anxiety is so different and presents so different in each individual. And I wanted to be able to showcase how this student had anxiety attacks. Well, that's a different kind of anxiety than generalized anxiety disorder. So I wanted to show some of those different symptoms, like they each had different triggers.
What message do you want young athletes and their parents to walk away with after hearing your story, after hearing your experiences, why you wrote the book, and everything you've witnessed over your years?
Look at all their peers and they think everyone has it together, and they don't. They're all just kind of fighting the same battles of, trying to do the best they can and trying to be accepted and trying to find their place in the world. No matter what you're going through, there's support out there. There's books like these. There's people at your school, people in your community, people in your family that love you and care about you and want to support you.
Welcome in everybody to this week's episode of Fighting for Overtime. As always, I'm your host, Coach Tony. Tonight, I have another wonderful guest for you. This is an award-winning children's author. Just came out with a great book we're going to get to. We're going to tease a little bit, get to a little bit. She has a fantastic background for what she's been doing for this book series that's all based on ages 9 to 14. You can follow her at Stories by Jennifer Licate on IG. That's Stories BYJENNIFERLICATE. That's again www.storiesbyjennifer.com. And Jennifer is an award-winning author we got to, but whose books are focused on growing up topics for children who struggle with friendship and anxiety, the study skills. That's a big deal for the audience here. The books are geared towards children, I said 9 through 14, and young readers learn strategies to work through their challenge and give them the comfort of knowing they're not alone in their struggle. Jennifer has a master's degree in elementary and secondary school counseling and has worked as a school counselor for over a decade. So she knows what's going on right now with our youth, and that's going to be great. Through working with children of all ages, she's seen the benefits of social emotional learning books firsthand. Children lose themselves as they're immersed within the story. She said they're able to understand complex issues from so many different perspectives by seeing the story through the eyes of the character. And her newest book, which we teased, My Anxiety is Messing Things Up, just hit the shelves. The link will be in the description. You just go to www.storiesbyjennifer.com and get it today. Jennifer, it's long. Jennifer Licate, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you for that introduction. Wow.
You have the accolades, right? I mean, listen, I'm not trying to make you blush, but you do. So why not? Listen, we work hard for this stuff, right? So why not put it all out there?
Yeah, thank you.
Nah, absolutely. And I, just so the audience knows, I get different emails from time to time from different publishing houses and different publicists. I run my own PR company, but it's nice when you get something that was really thought out, like I got from Jennifer, and it ties directly into what we talk about. Listen, this is Fighting for Overtime. We discuss the anxiety and achievements in youth sports, and that anxiety, Jennifer, is one of the key words to what you're trying to do.
And it can really hold children back when they're feeling anxious because it affects so many pieces of being able to play and feeling their best. So it really ties into youth sports so well.
It really does. Character in the book, his name is Oscar. And just so everybody knows, he's a perfectionist with an anxiety problem. And one of these quotes, Jennifer, I want to say, it's right from chapter 1, which I loved. It says, "My parents say I'm a perfectionist. That basically means I try to do everything perfectly, which is obviously impossible. We know, right? I'm rarely satisfied with my best, and I'm always pushing myself to do things better." Now, I have to tell you that if that doesn't read in to a young youth sports athlete right now, and for anybody for that matter, but considerably when you're in that 10, 11, 12, you're constantly wanting to be perfect. And this is a great book to show that sometimes you can't be perfect, right?
Right. A lot of times, right? I mean, as adults, we know we make mistakes every day. And as kids, I feel like they're so hard on themselves and they don't understand that it's part of the journey, making these mistakes, and that's how they learn from it. They just look at their game and their performance and they're like, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. And it's like, you're not going to be perfect. Like, no one's perfect, like that's just the way it is, but it takes them a little while to get there.
Yeah, it really does. I think you'll really respect this. And really relate to it. I had a guest on, Noelle, who was a former Division 2, 3 basketball player. She played in high school at a high level, and one of her quotes was, at the end, I always ask the athletes to come on me like, what's one thing, if you could speak to the younger audience right now, what would you give them as advice? And she said, I wish I would have celebrated my wins. And I was like, what do you
Yes.
mean? Right. And I said, what do you mean? And she broke it down, Jennifer. And it made so much sense what you just said. She said, because I was always worried about how I was going to do better or what was going to be next, and never really focused on what I was winning at that absolute moment.
Right, right. And celebrating the little wins. Like it's so important for the parents to model that for their children, because sometimes kids, it doesn't come naturally to them to celebrate the wins, but it's like, look at how far you've come. Look at how you tried that new skill and now you're able to do it on the field without even thinking about it. All of those little wins deserve to be celebrated. But when you're just looking at this goal that's so far away, I feel like you miss the joy in it and the pride in it, which you deserve to have as a student athlete, because you're working so hard, you're practicing so hard. You deserve to have fun and be proud of yourself. You don't have to get to this end goal and then that gives you permission to be proud of yourself.
You're spot on. I mean, I've seen it as a coach. I've seen it as a parent. It's so true. Now, let's ask, because again, we got into a lot of your accolades, and I do want to. You've worked as a school counselor for over a decade, so I do want to get everybody inside of why you've written these books, and what first inspires you to take those experiences with kids and turn them into this award-winning series.
When I was working as a school counselor at an elementary school, I loved using bibliotherapy with students. So, bibliotherapy is when you read these social emotional learning books about these complex mental health topics. And it's used for so many ways. First of all, it takes some of the pressure off the kids where they're not coming in and having to do a talk therapy type situation, especially if they're dealing with something really near and dear to their heart, something that's really hard for them to talk about. And maybe they haven't worked with a counselor before or even that school counselor. So I really liked to use bibliotherapy books to help children learn about these complex issues and then also learn coping strategies and also see they're not alone in what they're going through, because here's this book. It's showing them that they're not the only child who's ever gone through this. So I had a lot of fourth and fifth graders, primarily girls, who were dealing with the ending of a friendship that had been something close to them for a very long time. And then as kids change, friendships shift. It's normal for friendships to ebb and flow. But as the first time of experiencing that, and then maybe not being included in their old friends' new friendships, they felt like it was a loss for them, and felt like a rejection, and they didn't understand why, and they didn't understand that this was normal. So I was looking for a book like that to explain it, because it was really heartbreaking for the kids and I couldn't find one. So that's when I wrote my first book, which is called I Lost My BFF, because I thought, well, this book doesn't exist and I feel like it would help the kids. So that's what prompted me to write it, because I had so much respect for these books. And I thought, well, this is a really great topic that the kids and the counselors could really benefit from.
I love it. I tell you why I love it, because for those tuning in for the first time, one of my statements at the end of every show description of every episode is, you are not alone. And I've said that because I've been through the ringer when it's come to youth sports as a parent, as a coach. I've had major anxiety problems as a parent, as a coach. I've seen
Yeah.
kids deal with it, right? And by
Yeah.
doing these episodes, Jennifer, I've had so many people reach out to me through email, through direct message, and just saying, I just want to thank you because I thought I was alone. Like, because there's a lot of podcasts out there. And look, everybody,
Yeah.
I'm not here. I get it. However,
Right.
who's actually dissecting the actual anxiety of these kids at such a young age that are going through these situations, right?
Yeah. And I love what you're saying too, the parents. Like sometimes you'll be watching your child and you're my son plays baseball and all the moms who are pitchers, they're always like taking laps. Like they're like, I can't watch. I can't. So it's like as a parent, you're going through it too, and you want to model this is okay, this is part of the journey, but you want your child to do so well, and you know how much their heart breaks when they don't. That as a parent, sometimes you hold that anxiety too for them.
Yes, and the parents, they get forgotten about,
Yeah.
and I'm being honest, like, because, from your everyday, running around and struggles of getting your kid from A to B, and you're feeling the same pain if they're going through tryouts, if they're in
Yeah.
a big tournament, right? Because then you're gonna feel their anxiety, and if something bad happens, now you're gonna have to foster that as well, right? So
Yes.
it's tough. They get forgotten about. I really feel that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's like we're just driving them, but we're also their cheerleaders and their counselor afterwards. And so yeah, the parents do play a really big role in all this.
Now, in your book, Oscar is a student athlete who feels pressure to be perfect in everything, school, sports, and in music. How closely would you say does that mirror the kinds of pressure, you've seen over the years, real pressure in these kids' faces?
Yes. I mean, he's a true perfectionist in that he wants to do well in everything. I don't feel like every child is like that. Some children just kind of channel it into one area. Maybe they channel it into sports, or they channel it into academics, or they channel it into music. I had him want to be perfect in everything, which some children are truly like. They excel at everything and they just expect that from themselves. But every child's different. Some just put that pressure on themselves in sports.
Speaking of sports, many athletes, especially in the middle school, especially between that 9 to 14, which your books are geared towards that age, they struggle with balancing
Yeah.
sports, right? Academics,
Yes.
social life. So, what would you say are some signs that you've seen, or that parents or coaches look for, that anxiety may be interfering with the child's well-being?
So the first sign I would tell parents to look for is parents know their child the best. They know their history, they know their disposition, the things they like to do. If you see a change in your child and your child has always loved going to soccer practice and now all of a sudden they don't want to go, they're like complaining about it. I feel like that's a really big sign. Like it's important to check in with your child and say, it's been a week and a half, and every time it's time to go to soccer, you're really complaining and really like not wanting to go. What's been happening? Has something been happening with the coach? Has something been happening with playing time? Has something been happening with the other kids? Like I would ask that of your child to see. That would be one sign that I would really just have a conversation with your child and learn what's going on. It could be not anxiety, it could be that they're just tired, or it's the start of the school year or something like that. But I think that that's a really good time to check in with your child. The other thing I would tell parents to look for is physical symptoms that sometimes go unnoticed. If your child is complaining of headaches or stomach aches or having, digestion issues, any of those type of things, if there's not a medical reason for it, I would ask your child, and I would look for patterns. Is it before games? Is it before a big test? When are these headaches or stomach aches existing? So that's another sign that I think parents and teachers, coaches can look out for. The other thing is irritability and being distracted. That's another sign of anxiety, because when you're in your head, sometimes you're not able to attend to what's going on. And sometimes when someone asks something of you, it feels like just one more thing. And the child's like, I don't know, like it just feels overwhelming for them. And it can look like irritability, but it might be anxiety. So those would be the big things that I would tell parents and coaches to talk to the child about if they're noticing those symptoms.
I could be honest with you. I can tell firsthand. I'm a pretty transparent person. That number two, when you talked about the digestive issues and things that I dealt with that myself as a coach. Like,
Right.
I felt it, like, and I knew I went to my doctors, like, there's nothing medically wrong. No, it's like, I think you have anxiety. I was like, really? Are you
Yeah.
sure? Yeah. And I mean, I went through the ringer, man, therapy. I was on antidepressants for a little bit. I mean, I'm saying that because it really it impacted me. Like,
Yes.
and what you're saying is spot on. I can definitely relate to it for sure.
Yeah, and I love that you're saying that because it's important to normalize it. Like we all have these ranges of emotion, and it's not only okay to just talk about our good emotions. It's also okay to share that we struggle sometimes and we need support and we need coping strategies. So I think that's great that you do that and share that.
I look at it as, I when I was going through it, I started to look at other people. I'm very invested in the sports scene. So I would listen to people and not just the celebrities, but just the normal people that were dealing with. It's like, wow, like I feel better now. It's
Yes.
not just me. Now, speaking
Yeah.
of that, in the book, you talk about Oscar finding support in a counseling group, right?
Yes.
So what do you hope young readers and their parents too? Don't forget about the parents take away from that part of the story, right? Because sometimes we need that group, correct?
Yes. We need people that we feel comfortable talking about hard things. So that was one reason I wanted Oscar to be able, because he didn't feel comfortable talking to his group of guy friends about it. So this group provided him the outlet to be able to share what he was going through. So that was one reason I wanted him to be able to have the support of friends, also to know he's not alone, like you said earlier. That's very important. And then I also wanted the young readers and the parents to learn that anxiety is so different and presents so different in each individual. And I wanted to be able to showcase how this student had anxiety attacks. Well, that's a different kind of anxiety than generalized anxiety disorder. So I wanted to show some of those different symptoms, like they each had different triggers that caused the anxiety too. So I had one student that had anxiety with big tests, one student that was nervous about something bad happening to their family members, just fearful of something bad happening to them. So I wanted the young readers and the parents to know that just because it doesn't present exactly as maybe Oscar presents, that doesn't mean it's not anxiety. It still might be anxiety. There's so many different forms of anxiety that I just wanted to be able for the reader to learn about a lot of different forms. And I felt like the counseling group allowed the readers to do that.
Listen, and again, we're speaking to Jennifer Licate, the award-winning child's book author of the newest book right now out, My Anxiety is Messing Things Up. Make sure you give her a follow at Stories by Jennifer Licate on IG. It'll be in the description, and obviously her website, storiesbyjennifer.com. Now, kids often in sports fear of letting the team down. And what would you say? And again, I know it's hard to be, from a coaching perspective, but from a counseling perspective, how would you say coaches and parents alike can help reduce that pressure and instead build resilience in these kids?
Yeah, I think it's not a one and done conversation. I feel like it is a point you have to reiterate, especially with these kids who may be leaders on the field and they really want to have that award winning play at the end of the game that saves the game and they're the hero. I mean, every kid that plays sports, I feel like wants that. That's like the dream, right?
Yep.
So I feel like I feel like just saying to your child, or if you're a coach, saying to your athletes, we're a team. We're all on the team. We all got to this place together. We're in the position where we could have lost the game or we could have won the game from this one play. That was not just on you. That was on all of us. This is a team sport. We're all trying our best. And that's all we can expect of each other is to just try our best. And then, of course, offer them options. Like if you want to improve a certain part of your game playing, then maybe do this extra practice or maybe work on this on your own. Offer solutions too, like things that they can do to improve if that's something that they feel bad about. But I think that is important, and also building resiliency and letting them know that failure is part of the process, and they are going to not be successful all the time. And sometimes a referee or an umpire is going to make plays that they don't, or make calls that they don't agree with. And it's all part of the game. And to relate it to life, resiliency will help you in life. There's not a lot that you can get that you don't have to work for. So just saying that to them too, like every time you're out there, you're getting better. Every time you're out there, you're getting stronger. This is all part of the process and really great for you. So I just feel like it's not something that I feel like all kids will get right away. Some kids just have the disposition where they can just roll with it and they're kind of okay with it. But these kids that really put a lot of pressure on themselves, I feel like they need to hear that message over and over.
I completely agree. And it always is usually, and this isn't to, pigeonhole anybody, but it is normally that team captain or, that superstar player that he feels that pressure. I mean, look, for people listening, if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan, we're watching it with their star receiver at AJ Brown right now. You watch it all across sports, these players that want to be great, and because that's all they know right now. Now, what's great about the book is I want to get to some coping strategies, because you talk about a lot of strategies within your book, like journaling, exercising, breathing techniques. Do you think these could be especially helpful for young athletes before a big game or a competition as well?
Yes, I feel like breathing techniques, I love that for everyone, because I feel like you always have your breath. You can do it in front of others, you can do it when you're by yourself. It increases the oxygen to your brain, so it does have calming down, effects on it. And I feel like it's important to give children and people learning about breathing techniques some tools like that you have to do. So I always used to teach children to do the 5-finger breathing technique. Like you breathe up 1, and then you hold it, and then you breathe down. So, and then you're making sure the child does 5 deep breaths. And if that doesn't work, just continue it again, instead of children thinking, oh, well, this didn't work. Like I did it real quick and it didn't work. And it does take a little while to learn some of these coping strategies. So I like the deep breaths for children, for adults. I feel like anyone can benefit from breath work to calm their body down. I feel like exercise lends itself so well to athletes, because hopefully they're doing exercise every day to keep their anxiety at a good base level. So that's one way that they can reduce their anxiety. And then also, it's so acceptable for athletes to do a quick little athletic spurt right before a game. It would look a little off if they did it before a test, but if they're doing that before a game, that's a good way to get some of that adrenaline and tension out of their body, so that they can kind of relax their body before going into the game. And they can do the breath work during the game. If they start to feel nervous and the game's getting really close, they can do those strategies again, or the quick exercise bursts too.
That's a great point. I mean, I hope everybody listening to that, because I obviously we always hear about before the game and after the game, but nobody talks about in game, right?
Yes.
Right. So it's a big point of emphasis. I want people to really understand, because I've been campaigning a lot for that. I feel like coaches should have mental health training. And
Yes, that would be great.
right? I mean, because I know what I dealt with when I was a coach. Now, I've been out of the coach game for probably about 3-4 years now, but I coached for 20 years, and I've seen it from girls to boys, man. I mean, there's a different set of scenarios,
Yes.
and nowadays, with how much exposure they have to everything, I really feel like they should have mental health training. And speaking on that, how would you say coaches can foster an environment that balances competitiveness with the mental health support, so hopefully they don't get this anxiety?
Yes. I think a big piece that coaches can do is cheer for their players when they do things well, and also when they don't. I've observed coaches who only are giving that negative criticism, like, oh, you could have done this, or, make sure you keep your eye on the ball, or whatever the situation is. It I think it would go a long way for the student athletes to hear positive accolades in addition to just what they could improve. So I think that's something that coaches should challenge themselves to do. I'm sure it's easy as a coach to kind of just watch and observe. And if things are going well, there's not really too much to say. And then, when emotions get high, when things don't go well, sometimes things come out. But I think that would really be helpful for coaches and for their athletes to hear. And I think also having some of these messages in their end of the game meetings or beginning of the game pep talks, just saying we're going to try our best. I really value you guys as players. Like, anything that feels authentic to you as a coach, I would say to the kids so that they hear that. So they're not just little performers on the field, but they know that you care about them as a kid, as a person, which I feel like most coaches do. I just think they don't say that. Like they don't feel like it's their job to say that. But I think that it goes a long way. When I just a silly story from when I played sports in high school, I played field hockey and soccer, and one of my coaches did that strategy of, you guys suck, let's go, what are you doing? But we were girls, and so we were like, well, if we suck, we're that's fine, then we might as well suck. And he was like, what is happening with you guys? And
Yep.
it's like, you have to know how to motivate the players and you have to know your audience. So it's like, it really does matter how the coaches talk to the players because it affects their confidence. And there are a certain number of kids, and it's not necessarily right, but there's a certain number of kids that will perform better when they feel like their teachers like them or their coaches like them. So that is part of the game, I want to say, but also like part of like what you should want to do working with kids also.
I
Find the good in them and support that.
I agree. And I was at fault for that for years. It took me, I was the yeller. I was the screamer, right? And I always said, it came from a good place.
Yes.
However, if I had to learn how to explain that, right? I knew it was coming from a good place, but the kids didn't always know that, right? So
Right.
so I had to learn myself to be like, okay, I'm yelling at you in between the entire game. After the game, no, we have to have a conversation. This is why I was doing it, but this is what you did well. Like
Yeah.
it can't all be negative, right? I mean, that's
Right.
such a huge point with me because I remember those days so well, man. So well. Oh my God. It's like it was
Yeah.
yesterday. Now from your counseling work, what would you say you've learned about how real life stories and shared experiences shape the way these kids handle their challenges growing up?
I think that just having supportive, I mean, some of it is disposition. Like I said, some kids are just very wired to see the good in everything and will just always keep trying. I feel like it's really helpful also for children to have a supportive adult in their corner, someone that celebrates the wins with them, someone that's really supportive of them, someone that offers a listening ear. I feel like that really shapes children's experiences. And I feel like also listening to your child. Like I had an experience as a high school counselor where I had a boy in high school who got hurt and wasn't able to play anymore, and he was relieved. He was like, I'm just kind of glad for a break. And I'm sure that I don't know that he didn't tell his parents, but I thought to myself, wow, that probably really would break his parents' heart to hear that because they're so invested in it. But it's like, if it's just pressure, pressure, pressure all the time and you're not reading your child, it might be too much. And it might have been okay for a long period of time. And then when they get to a certain competitive level, it might start to feel like too much. So I feel like it's very important to make sure you're checking in with your child along the journey to make sure they're still having fun. It's still part of their goals, how you can help and support them. That's what I've seen has made a big difference for students and children.
That's a great listen. That's a great story because I've seen that multiple times throughout my coaching career. Never the crazy thing. I never saw it from injuries, so that's a great. I mean, because
Oh,
that's a wow. That's interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it was sad, and it stuck with me with my own children where I don't wanna push them too much because I want them to be having fun with it, and the sports journey ends for everyone at a certain point. So it's just when it's going to end, and it doesn't make you a bad kid for it to end at any point. Like it's important for kids to know they can always talk to their parent about that if it's feeling too much or not fun, or talk about changing the pressure on it too.
That is true. That is true. 100%. 100%. Now, let me ask you, since we a lot of great information. As we kind of close this out, what I ask my guests all the time. What message do you want young athletes and their parents, because they both listen to this show, to walk away with after hearing your story, after hearing your experiences, why you wrote the book, and everything you've witnessed over your years?
I want them to know, like you say, that they're not alone. I feel like that's so important because kids look at everyone, all their peers, and they think everyone has it together, and they don't. They're all just kind of fighting the same battles of, trying to do the best they can and trying to be accepted and trying to find their place in the world. So that's one thing, is not feeling alone. And then the other thing is, no matter what you're going through, there's support out there. There's books like these, there's people at your school, people in your community, people in your family that love you and care about you and want to support you. And there's also coping skills that can help you feel better. You don't have to be in this place, in this bad place forever. If you're not feeling good mental health wise, there's resources to help you get out of it.
You are not alone. It's such a powerful statement. It
It
really
is.
it really, really is. Again, Jennifer Licate, storiesbyjennifer.com, and go listen. I've been on the website. There's a ton of information on there. And how many books do we have now in the series, Jennifer?
9.
Wow, 9. And what what
Yes.
what what year? What year did you start? What your first one?
2020.
Okay, wow, that's listen, I love it. I mean, we're going on 5 years now. That's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a great accolade to have. Listen, I work with authors on my own sometimes, and it's like they get one, and I already understand they're already feeling the struggle for their first one. So if I feel like if you can get past that first one, and the agony of the first one, you really have a good path going ahead, right?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
definitely. Before we get out of here, anything? Do you have any? Should I ask? Is there going to be possibly maybe a 10th book plan?
I hope so. I
Awesome.
don't have anything in the works just yet, but I hope so. That's my plan.
That's awesome. All right. Well, listen, I really, really appreciate you hopping on. As always, I appreciate you sending me the book so I could check it out, break it down, and having this conversation with me. And listen, if you get that book number 10, we're gonna have to have you back on to talk about it, okay?
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me too.
Fighting for Overtime is a Rise and React media production. If you're looking to start a podcast, if you're looking to get some direction, hit us up, let us know. We'll help you out there as well. Again, for everybody, enjoy your time, memories and moments, and keep fighting that fight. Continue to fight in overtime to make your kid have the best experience that they can have when it comes to playing youth sports.